What up, you nerds? Papa Father Fallout here, and today we're here to talk about one thing. Mainly one thing. Stability. Why? Well, it's come to my attention that not every player fully understands this very important weapon stat. I'm sure some of you right now, probably rolling your eyes a little bit. Really, Fallout? Just explain the video in one word. Kick. It's just weapon kick. Technically true, but slow down there, buckaroo. You forgot about the metric butt ton of my least favorite thing in the world, variables. Stability is pretty straightforward on paper, but with lots of extra ins and outs, including platform, input method, weapon type, yada yada yada. Let's start with the basics. To put it simply, stability is how hard your weapon kicks after every time you pull the trigger. The first thing I want to go over is important, the inherent differences between people who play Destiny on controller and people who play on mouse and keyboard. If you're familiar with my God Roll video series, you'll probably remember how I say all the friggin' time that if you're on PC with a mouse, stability usually doesn't mean that much to you. I say this all the time because M&K players have a natural advantage in the weapon kick department. If you're unfamiliar, let me show you. Here we have the Krimil's dagger. Is it Krimil's? Krimmels? Whatever, doesn't matter. The C-word dagger. If you're new to Destiny, this is a 110 RPM hand cannon. Translation, it's slower than a rusty shopping cart, but it packs a wallop. I'm here shooting it against a wall in PvP with a controller. Out of everything on the screen you could look at right now, I actually want you to focus right down here in the bottom right corner of the screen. Do you see this little section of shadow cast across the floor of the map? Keep looking at it. Every time I fire the hand cannon with a controller, notice how both the gun and my screen kick up so hard with each shot that pretty much all of the shadow vanishes each time. Again, because the camera is jolting upwards so high. Now, without moving, I unplug the controller and now using mouse and keyboard fire at the exact same spot on the wall with the exact same gun. Again, keep your eyes peeled right here in the bottom right hand corner. Notice that now, at no point while firing, does the camera kick up so hard and so high to the point where the shadow becomes no longer visible. With each and every shot, the shadow is clearly still very visible the entire time. This is because controller players are intentionally given the burden of more severe weapon recoil. Check this, with every shot I've taken against my most fearsome enemy, the wall, I've taken a screenshot at the point where the gun kicks up to its absolute highest point. Now, RNG is a factor in this, but for the most part, the gun should kick up to about the same point each time. I've marked the distance between where the shot was originally aimed and how high the gun kicked. Here are 4 instances of where I fired via mouse and keyboard. I know, doesn't really look like 4 lines. It's because 2 of the patterns were really similar. They're borderline on top of each other. And here's 4 shots of where I fired with a controller. You see the difference? Yeah. Is it always going to be that noticeable? Well, depends on the gun, I would say. Real quick, another example. Everyone's favorite exotic hand cannon, the last word. This is me firing the gun with mouse and keyboard with 0 attempt to control the recoil. Okay, not bad. Definitely some repeated upwards kicking. Now, without moving from where I'm standing, here's me doing the exact same thing with a controller. You really don't need to have eagle eyes to see the difference. Firing with a controller, the weapon kick is much more severe. This proves to be true with pretty much every weapon that kicks. I don't want to dwell on M&K versus controller too much. This is a video about stability after all. But if you're wondering why controller players get the shaft in the stability department, here is why. They get extra aim assist to compensate. Aim assist is more than one thing, by the way. Part 1 of aim assist is bullet magnetism, which I'm demonstrating right now. It's pretty much how hard bullets gravitate towards whatever target you're aiming at. The higher your weapon's aim assist, the stronger the magnetism, apparently. Part 2 of aim assist is weapon stickiness, aka how hard your weapon reticle sticks to a target as it passes by your reticle. Whereas bullet magnetism applies to both M&K users and controller users, reticle stickiness only applies to controller users. That is their trade-off. You gain extra stickiness to help you land shots, but in return, you miss out on the god-tier stability factor that the M&K people get. So before this turns into an M&K versus controller type thing, which is a video for maybe never because the comment section on that video would be an absolute show, let's review what we've seen so far. Controller players appreciate stability. Good recap. Now real quick, let's talk about recoil direction. I covered this once before in a pretty in-depth video already on my channel, but it's worth bringing up quickly right now if you haven't seen it yet. But by the way, how dare you, go watch that video. Recoil direction is different than recoil. It's a hidden weapon stat in Destiny that can only be viewed on data mined websites like light.gg or inventory management apps like Destiny Item Manager. The main reason I want to bring this up is because even though the value on your gun is hidden, you can directly affect the recoil direction on your gun, sometimes via barrel options. And again, it's important to not confuse this with stability. Arrowhead Break is a good example of this. The text says greatly controls recoil. Again, it means recoil direction, not overall stability. I break it down a little more thoroughly in the other video, but check out this chart right here. Your weapon's recoil direction will determine which way the gun will kick when you fire. Take the Adhortative Pulse Rifle. It has a default recoil direction of 61, which the chart indicates is more likely to kick to the right. Firing at the wall. Yeah, not every single shot is going to be exactly the same, but most times, as you can see, it's kicking to the right. Now we put on the Arrowhead Break barrel mod, which improves your recoil direction by 30, which will put our new recoil direction up to 91. Again, look at the chart. Now that it's up to 91, it's more likely to kick to the left. Shoot it at the wall, and yup, bingo. Kicks left. So, recap number 2. What is the difference between stability and recoil direction? Stability is how hard upwards your gun kicks and how your camera angle gets jolted upwards, and recoil direction is a hidden weapon stat value that determines which way exactly your weapon is more likely to kick when firing. And also a quick reminder of recap number 1, where controller players need stability more overall. Got it? Great. Now, let's talk about which weapons appreciate and crave stability, and which ones don't really give a f***. Again, this applies mostly to controller folk, but I'll make distinctions when needed. Starting off with pulse rifles. Really, any burst fire weapon appreciates having stability, and pulse rifles fit the bill. Here's a good example, using the Outlast Pulse. I have 2 of them here, one with a healthy stability of 61, and the other with an absolute garbage level of 39. Take a look at the bullet patterns left by each on the wall. Look at how much closer together the shots are on the one with more stability. Overall, you just have a much better chance of grouping your shots together if you have good stability on a pulse rifle. A reminder that again, that was done with controller, and with M&K, even the low stability Outlast Pulse Rifle has a pretty decently tight spread pattern. Next up, we got fusion rifles. As you can imagine, these also benefit a bunch from stability. Here we have 2 Erentills, one with relatively assy stability and one with respectably high stability, and also with tap the trigger, which grants a little extra. Check the low stability fusion first. Damn, that is some unreal kick. Really wild, and that was firing with mouse and keyboard, by the way. You throw on the high stability Erentil, and check it out, much more manageable. SMGs, sidearms, auto rifles, hand cannons, machine guns, and even scout rifles can all benefit from stability. Most of the weapons I just mentioned, it's kind of on a case-by-case basis. Normally, weapons that hit harder will also kick harder as well. Just compare the intensity of the weapon kick of a 110 RPM hand cannon to a 180 RPM hand cannon. Always keep that in mind when trying out new guns in either PvE or PvP. How much does my gun kick, and could it benefit from tweaking up the stability a little bit? Alright, what about weapons that don't benefit from stability? Let's cover those odd ducks. First up, we got rocket launchers. There is almost no earthly reason you should ever be trying to acquire a rocket launcher with high stability. Velocity and blast radius are by far more important stats, along with reload speed. I shouldn't have to explain this, but by the time you're done firing your rocket launcher and have reloaded, your crosshair is more than reset and you're ready to go again without having to worry about the weapon's kick interfering with your next rocket. If there ever comes a day where Bungie gives us a rocket launcher with a super deep magazine that goes beyond one rocket in the tube, a rapid fire rocket launcher of sorts, then sure, we'll talk. But until then, stability is pretty much a huge waste of time on rocket launchers in general. That also goes for rocket's fun little cousins, grenade launchers, and I don't mean only for single shot launchers. Even drum mag launchers like Play of the Game and Swarm of the Raven, yeah, if you spam the trigger, the gun will slowly kick up as you fire, but wow, is it so easy to manage. You should honestly never be even a little bit concerned if your grenade launcher has quote, low stability, because it really won't matter at all. Next on our list, shotguns. Kind of. Before you type an angry message, it depends on the shotgun. For shotties that are one and done guns, aka pull the trigger one time, big bang, enemy dead in one hit, yeah, probably not a lot of need for stability. Yes, having more means your weapon won't kick up as much, but since you're able to kill your enemies in PvP with one trigger pull, there's not really any great need to control your recoil if you're A, up close, and B, accurate. If you're farming a god roll PvP mindbender, for example, the last thing you probably care about is stability. The only exceptions are fast firing and full auto shotguns, especially in PvE. Shotguns where you want to get right up in the face of a major or a boss and unload with shell after shell after shell can absolutely benefit from stability, because it's going to reduce the amount of continued kick pulling your weapon up towards the ceiling and away from your target. Okay, next up, snipers. Again, kind of. Like shotguns, the faster firing your sniper is, the more it likely benefits from stability. Firing a rapid fire frame sniper as fast as you can will show you just exactly how intense the kick on the gun can be. For the most part though, snipers don't really benefit a ton from stability because of how slowly they fire. By the time your sniper is finally ready to fire a follow-up shot, your crosshair should be already reset and ready to fire again. Next on our list of who cares, linear fusion rifles. Are you noticing a pattern here? I sure hope so. Anything with a slow rate of fire or a charge-up time that only shoots one shot at a time in a perfectly straight line, almost no need for stability. Yes, if you have a low stability linear fusion rifle, it's gonna kick like a mother when you fire. But again, who really cares? It has a charge up time and it fires only one shot, unlike regular fusion rifles which fire a whole bunch all at once and need to be controlled. With a linear rifle, by the time you're ready to charge up and fire your next shot, you're back to square one, so you don't really have to worry about the gun's kick throwing you off. Finally, we have bows. I had a stupidly annoying time trying to figure out what stability did, if anything, for bows. With every other gun in the game, stability prevents excessive upwards kicking, but here's the thing on that. Bows don't kick up when they fire, so what the hell? I tinkered around way too long with the idea that maybe stability did something to prevent reticle bounce while your arrow was drawn and ready to fire. Nope. A little bit later, I realized it's not that bows don't kick, it's that they don't kick up. They kick down when you fire. So stability on bows apparently prevents the bow from kicking down excessively after each arrow you fire. Try to find the difference between these two pictures. I promise they are different pictures. One of them was a bow with slightly more stability. That one, the bow didn't jolt the camera downwards as hard as the bow with lower stability. You get it? Same concept, just the opposite direction as every other gun. But even though it's clear stability does something on a bow, it's A, tremendously minor, and B, the exact same situation as rocket launchers. By the time your next arrow is drawn and ready to fire, your bow will already be back at its normal starting position anyway, so who cares about stability? If we ever get an ultra hyper rapid fire full auto bow and arrow, which would be nuts by the way, then we can talk about needing stability. And there you have it, a full breakdown on stability differences for controller versus mouse and keyboard, weapon kick versus recoil direction, and which weapons really actually benefit from having additional stability, and which weapon types really couldn't care any less. If you enjoyed this video, then gently caress the like and subscribe buttons. They've been smashed enough. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.